Hello, FloodGate family. Thank you so much for this great Leadership Live event. This is another great event, and we've got a really special guest here. We got Paolo Jelmoni, who is the CCO of BK Medical. And so for those that don't know you, Paolo, can you give us a little bit of background about you and BK and where you are right now?
Absolutely. First of all, hello, everybody. Thanks, Joe, for the opportunity. It's really great to be here. And so, let me start by introducing myself. So I was born and raised in Italy. I took my first job outside of the country. I worked for Codman, which used to be a Johnson & Johnson company. I was just out of college, so I didn't know much about, let's say, real life. But I was there for 4 years. I developed a passion, within this company for neurosurgery, first of all, and also for med devices. And then after 4 years, I moved to the US. I moved to Los Angeles. I took a job with a rather small cranial maxillofacial plating company, which was based in LA. So I've now been here for 21 years. And then after 2 years there, I joined a company called BrainLab, which is a leader in image-guided surgery, radiotherapy, and surgical planning. I was with them for 16 years. So from a career standpoint, that was my longest, most meaningful stop, if you like. And then 3 years ago, I joined BK Medical, which is it's a surgical imaging and visualization company. We use ultrasound as a modality. It's a very interesting company. The company has been in business for a long time, approximately 40 years. And it was originally founded in Denmark, where we still have a very important office. And it's a global company, of course, now. And we are leaders in neurology. We are developing very aggressive market strategy in general surgery and neurosurgery. These are our what we call greenfield markets. This is where we have the core of our current growth and our future growth. This is where we're scaling the business very aggressively. And, basically last year, at the end of last year, we were acquired by GE Healthcare, specifically by the ultrasound division of GE Healthcare. And so, really in 2022, we started basically a new chapter for the company within GE. I think it's extremely exciting. Of course, they have a huge scale and they do a number of things really, really well. We've been able to take advantage of some of those already. So I think it's an exciting time, honestly, to be at BK Medical. We have been managed as a separate entity. So we have been kept whole, if you like. The management team has been kept whole. Our strategy hasn't changed. But we actually have even more possibilities now because obviously we are a mid-sized company. So we don't have, the infrastructure, the resources to do everything we do at the scale that we need to. So I think it's a very good partnership and hopefully will help us to succeed, in the future.
Yeah, that's a perfect balance where you have some of that, the assets and the resources of a GE, but separate enough that you can be nimble and operate in the space, especially when you're going after greenfield markets, right? Where you're learning every day, on the best way to go to market. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Makes total sense. Now, you've been in med device for 21 years, and had incredible leadership trajectory within BrainLab and now where you sit today. You've led people. What are the key attributes to be a good leader in med device? What do you think?
It's a very interesting question, right? And it certainly prompts some introspection, right? And so look, I'll tell you a few things that I care about, right? Basically, simply. And, I don't know if they apply specifically to medical devices. I think that these are things that apply to, any field in life. But look, the things that I care about are fundamentally, first and foremost, I think as a leader, it's critical to be authentic and really transparent, right? I mean, I think I'm really keen on that. I always say to people in every interaction that I have, no matter who I talk to within the company, is always, please be direct with me. I will always be direct with you. And, I've also learned that It's not always easy because sometimes people can be intimidated by a title, by a position in the org chart or by certain particular topics. But this is where I think the culture of the company really is important, because if there is an understanding throughout the company that people can speak openly and be direct, then it happens. And I think it's a good thing, right? And of course, there has to be boundaries. Being direct doesn't mean being disrespectful.
Right.
Being direct doesn't mean crossing particular boundaries or not being professional. Again, this is something that leaders, I think, really have to pay particular attention to, so that a certain culture can develop within an organization. And I find that really productive. The second thing I look for, and is important to me, is accountability. It's a simple word, right? And to me, really, it has a simple meaning, which is, in essence, if you commit to do something, then you should do it, right? I don't like excuses. And, of course, people need to be put in a position to be able to succeed. That's absolutely fair. So, but I think if you give directions to people, if you set goals and objectives the right way, and if you help people succeed, then, the right people need to be able to take something on and deliver the results, right? So I don't like people that, sit on something. If you have questions, ask. If you find there are things that you cannot figure out on your own, just ask. That's never a problem. But not to ask questions and not to deliver, let's say, results at the end for something that you committed to, I think it's a problem. I always try to lead, with accountability. I consider myself accountable for, frankly, everything that happens in my organization. I, very much sort of preach the same, the same topic, if you like, with my manager. So again, this is something that I want the organization to understand. We are accountable for our actions, and I think that's very important. And the last one that I will mention, I think, really is having a good attitude. And this is something that I must admit I learned with time. I tend to be focused at work. I tend to be probably intense also at work. It helps me because there is a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So, to be focused certainly helps me. But, as a leader, I think that one creates an atmosphere. And some of the things that I like the most about some of my previous managers were their ability to crack a joke at the right time, crack a smile at the right time. Again, I think that really, let's say there is a room full of people, people feed off the environment, right? And so I think that no matter how stressful a particular topic can be, no matter how stressful a particular time in a company can be, leaders, I think, need to be very aware of that. And they need to be able to project, I think, an area, an aura, if you like, or optimism and positivity. I think that people feel that. So these are three things, not to go too long on these, that are very important to me.
Very, very good, points of creating that environment of candor, right? So they create trust and speed of trust, being able to bring some fun and a right level of confidence, but then also accountability, because, other people are depending on that, right? And if you're missing your deadline, it trickles down. But if you have a problem, hopefully that speed of trust, that candor, you could say there's a problem, right? And not just bury it. So I can see how those really fit all into one. But if you're doing them consistently, can really make that wheel move fast. That's great suggestions. I know personally as a leader, I didn't always do the right things, and I learned sometimes the hard way. So I'm curious what lessons you've learned the hard way in your leadership that you might share and maybe save some people those mistakes.
Yeah, listen, I made a lot of mistakes. Okay, I'm old enough now where, I work a long time. So I'm grateful they only asked for a couple, so I don't have to look too bad. Okay, so but
Yeah, you're glad you didn't have mine. I'd go the whole meeting, so that's
yeah.
okay.
So no, listen, seriously, I think this is about introspection and being self-aware. So two things that really I learned that, the hard way, but they were also very helpful. One is something that I joke about, but it's actually a fact as well. I'm constantly reminded of, even at home, and that is to be more patient. And so, my instincts in general are, oriented toward action and results.
Mm-hmm.
And when at least when I was younger, it was certainly harder for me to filter or contextualize that the right way.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are working on your own, and or if you don't have people that report to you, you can get away with being impatient or being very pushy. But the second, when you start leading other people, that needs to be put in the right context. And so I really learned in my own career that to be able to lead, push, motivate people the right way is fundamentally important. And there were times where I wasn't patient enough, and certainly can backfire, right? So everything needs to be constructive. Context needs to be given, directions have to be given, and then frankly, you need to let people do the work, right? And so again, and it goes back to accountability, right? So
Right.
it's a matter of account. So if you trust your people to be accountable, I think it's important to let them, give them enough time to be able to deliver. So that's something that I learned certainly the hard way in the past. And the other one, is having the right people. I know it's an obvious statement, but it's not something that I probably consider as important in the past as I consider it now. And I think, I don't know, you can read a lot of articles or books. Talking about people has become almost a cliche, and it's almost a pity because it really is important. And I work now at BK for 3 years. Brainlab was very similar. We were also growing very fast, but BK has been really quite aggressive in terms of growth. And so scaling the company is one of the things that we've been doing for 3 years, and we are not even done. We are continuing to scale the company. If you don't have the right people, you're not going anywhere, period. Okay.
Right.
So it's just the way it is. And so how did I learn this? Well, I there were times where I felt that I rushed in hiring people. Sometimes there is this pressure. I felt the pressure of, oh my God, for instance, there is an open sales territory. When I was VP of sales, we got to put somebody in the territory quickly. It was a bad idea. You have to really be thorough, and you have to be absolutely sure that the right person, the right people are joining your organization. So, I made mistakes there. I think that in capital equipment, if you're selling sophisticated technology, it takes enough time to get people up to speed with training, with understanding, with knowledge. And so, if you're hiring the wrong people, you're wasting time already in getting them up to speed. And then if you got to go back to the well and start hiring again, it's just a really vicious circle. Then you're in trouble. And so, surrounding myself, first of all, with the right managers. I work very, very closely with my most immediate team, with my direct reports. So, I'm very, very careful about who I surround myself with, or I try to be. And again, then I try to make sure that they also, focus on hiring the right people with the right character, the right values, and we try to, transmit that within the organization. So, again, being more patient and having a little bit more, long-term view of what people can deliver, and really focus on hiring the right people, I think are two things that, thank God, I made mistakes because they were very valuable lessons for me.
Right. Yeah. You learn them the hard way, and I can appreciate the patience thing, and obviously I can appreciate the talent. So you said taking the time. to make sure it's the right talent. And the cost of a bad hire is like, I think, $250,000. So it's a lot, so what have you found successful for you to find and evaluate new talent?
Yeah. So, I obviously apply a lot of things that I described before, but I would say, I think that if when I identify somebody with potential, I'm actually happy to take a risk. And what do I mean by that? This is something that, frankly, I benefited personally from. And so, first of all, I'm really grateful to, all of the managers in my career that have taken a risk on me at times. And it's something that taught me, again, very valuable lessons. So, I think if you identify somebody that has potential, to give them bigger challenges is very important. I think you need to give them very good, clear directions, set very clear goals and expectations. I think at that point, frankly, you got to let them do the work. Okay. Yeah. And again, there is always a little bit of risk with that. But I think more often than not, people with the right attitude, even if they don't come with what I call the complete package, right? They don't check every box. But if they have the right things, then I think they will work out. And I also find that to be, quite an interesting test. And what I mean by that is, if you take somebody and give them a job that is, let's say, bigger than what they are at the moment, I think that person and you as a manager will figure out very quickly if they're going to crack under pressure, or if they can sustain that pressure. And that, I think, shows up very, very quickly. Of course, you need to support, those people, because they are doing something that they have not done before, right? So, and that comes from good management. But ultimately, I find that really rewarding and motivating. I'll tell you, again, I'm old now, if you like, or I'm old enough. Of course, meeting business goals is critically important, and it's rewarding. But I really find developing people and seeing people succeed probably the most rewarding aspect of my job. And if I look at BK Medical, if I look at the last 3 years, we have done this, in the company. So, we have taken people within the company. In my organization, we have promoted them to positions where I don't even know if they thought they were ready for. But I think it's important. It's a really important message for the organization. I think, at times to get fresh blood within a team is important. I don't think a team should be too self-centered or too, say, inward looking or get blinders on. But I also think the priority should always be to promote from within the organization, because of course the organization feeds off that. Yeah. And if people see colleagues of theirs that are succeeding, I think actually it becomes a very virtuous circle. And that's really what we're trying to do over here.
No, that's so great. One of my great mentors personally, asked a similar question, and he said, well, it's great people love great challenges. Yeah, give them more than they think they can handle. Yeah. And step away and let them run, and I 100%. Think that's exactly what you were saying too. I found that they rise, they do more than you ever thought. So, and you get that secondary opportunity of really developing people. Absolutely. And having that good bench. Yes. So it's really cool. That's great. We're going to have some aspiring leaders on this. And by the way, guys, anyone that has questions, comments, you comment below in LinkedIn. We're going to pull those up at the end. So if there's questions you have for Paolo about anything, the topics he's covering, or something about the industry, please post those at the bottom. We'll take those at the end. But for those that are aspiring listening to this, what should they do to be tapped for their first leadership opportunity? Especially bigger companies, et cetera. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I thought about this one, and again, this is of course a personal answer of what I like and what I think works. So the first one for me really is be real, always. Okay, I mean, don't pretend, don't be political. Frankly, with me, don't be political at all. I just don't like that. And I have to say, I've been very lucky. I would say for the vast majority of my career, I worked in organizations that were really, I would say, apolitical, meaning really people were very real. Brain Lab really taught me a lot about that. And I think it really came and still comes because the founder and CEO is still at the helm of the company. His name is Stefan Bismayer, and I learned so much from him. And Stefan is somebody that I think, frankly, doesn't even know what politics is. You know what I mean? So it's somebody that will always shoot it straight. And when you spend time in that organization, you see that people are always very direct. So, I like to promote people for who they are and what they do, and not for what they say, if you understand what I mean. Okay, so
right.
that's really, really important in my opinion. So that's one.
Yeah.
And the other one is, I think, of course, show results. Business is always goal-oriented. That's easy enough to understand. If you work in a commercial side of any organization, it's fairly easy because on the commercial side, you're always judged mostly on quantitative goals. Now, I don't think those are the only goals that matter, even for salespeople. I mean, you can be making your numbers, but you could be a terrible team member, for instance. So that doesn't work. But the point is that showing results has to be a foundation, because if you haven't shown any results, you cannot be asked to be tapped for anything, right? And there are two other things, maybe two subset of things that I look at and I consider, again, coming from my personal experience. And I don't know if they're going to be, particularly popular, if you like, and I think they're a bit old school, but I'm going to say them anyway. So one is be patient. Look, I just told you, right, that one of the biggest lessons for me was to become more patient. Okay. So, but I feel, and I don't know if it's something that is more common a little bit now with, I would say, a younger generation of professionals, but I feel that sometimes people have an expectation about their career progression that may not be really rooted in reality. I think it's great to be ambitious. I think it's even better to work hard, show results, and be noted. But I think at times people forget that at the end of the day, it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Right.
And if you join an organization 6 months ago, 12 months ago, even if you're doing well, the next step may not necessarily be ready for you. It's not like every 12 months it's mandatory to check a box or to be promoted. So again, organizations are really living organisms. At times, timing may be wrong. It happened to me where I felt I was ready, but the organization wasn't ready.
Right.
And there was not a good place for me to move forward for a while. And luckily, I decided to stay in the organization anyways. And guess what? At a later time, great jobs came my way, right? So again, it's all about context, I think, and it's all about understanding really not only what you want, but what the organization needs. Otherwise, the two things just don't match, right? And the other thing is sort of similar, but I'm really big on this. And do you put yourself or the company and the organization first? And we live in an age where there is a lot of scrutiny on balance, life work balance, and I'm completely in line with that. I completely agree. But if you're thinking about your career in an ambitious manner, if you really care about work and career, then these are things that need to be considered. And
Yeah.
I think one of my tests is always looking at decisions that people have made or are making. And are they making decisions based on long-term outcome and ultimately for the benefit, in our case, of patients, customers, and the company?
Yeah.
Or are they making decisions for their personal benefit that
Right.
are more short-term?
Right. Yeah.
That to me is a really critical test.
Right.
And if I feel that somebody doesn't pass that test, if you like, I will have a tough time sort of promoting. So again, just to summarize, I think it's about showing results, being really focused on what needs to be done, being patient, again, the right way, right? Not meaning that you don't want to be promoted, of course not, but to
Right.
understand the right time when that needs to happen or when that should happen. And then, of course, again, make the right decisions, put the organization first, think big picture. I think there is the best people I work for or I work with were people that were always able to, parachute themselves into a problem, but also be able to take a step back and look at the
Mhm.
big picture. It's not easy. It's really not easy.
Yeah. It's not.
But I think it's a fantastic trait to have. And certainly as a leader, I think it's a mandatory trait. If you're
Right. Right.
only focused on the short term and sort of the small stuff, it can get quite tricky.
That's really interesting. I mean, a lot of what you said there again is that cyclical effect, right? If you're, company mission focused, you're going to have patience. You're going to be more authentic. It's not about you. It's about the objective. If it's about the objective, you're going to achieve more, right? And so aligning that, and you're right. I've been in that. I was lucky to be tapped at the right time, but there was times I was thinking, well, I'm getting, there's not enough path. I just kept after it, and then the doors opened. And if I wouldn't have stayed, I wouldn't have been there for that door, right?
Actually, can I add one thing to this? Because I think
Yeah.
it's important, if you don't mind. So great point that you made. I've had experiences, I would say even recently, okay, at BK Medical, where somebody young, really good, with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of potential, decided to leave the company. And there were people in my organization didn't report directly to me, but it's irrelevant. They were just in the organization. So and I always like to ask people, why are you leaving? I mean, that's a fundamental question. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
from experience, sometimes I heard things that I really didn't like at all, but they were a wake-up call. And so I asked this person, why are you leaving? And the answer was, I don't think there is a career path for me. And I was stunned because, and this is maybe a suggestion that I will give people is, first of all, as leaders, always ask your people what they want to do. You don't
Yeah.
need to ask this on a weekly basis, okay? You don't even need to ask this on a monthly basis. But there are enough opportunities, certainly in a yearly review, number one, but even in normal conversations, even having a meal or having a beer, right? So and on the other side, I think that many times, particularly people that don't have a lot of experience, are scared of going to their managers
Mm.
or their managers and say, I think I'm ready for something else. And I
Yeah.
think if the conversation is approached that way, and it's not a threat, right? But it's just like, look, I think I'm ready. Can we talk about it? I
Mm-hmm.
feel that can be really conducive to great relationships,
Yeah.
great mentorship, and long-term success. Again, I feel that sometimes people feel like there is no potential future, but they haven't asked anybody, right? So they
Right.
just make up their own mind,
Right.
and it's really a waste. I think it's a waste for the individual, but it's also a waste for the organization because you're losing good people. So
Yeah.
that's an important point, I think.
Yeah,
So
I guess that's important. Keep that line of communication both ways. I think
yeah,
Sharon, who's a guest last month, talked about, hey, stick your hand up.
yeah,
That's a
exactly.
path you want. Ask for help, but how do I get on that path?
Yeah,
So I think that really aligns to that. And we're gonna finish with kind of a fun question before we take some questions from the audience. If we've got some more questions from the audience, please put them in the comments below, and we'll take those here shortly. A little fun one here. I don't know if you'll take the superhero bait or not, but favorite superhero and why? Or any kind of hero, maybe, you know?
Yeah, no, listen, I'm not big on superhero, sorry, or characters, but I'll tell you what I really like, and I take a lot of inspiration from. I like sports, really. I like competition in general. I played a lot of basketball in my youth, and so I really admire athletes or coaches that are able to elevate their teams. There are, I think there are a lot of teams, if you like, in multiple sports in the United States. You can look at football, you can look at basketball, where, there is a system, right? There is a culture that really works. And independently almost of the players and almost independently of the coaches, that system lives on. And I find that incredibly inspiring. I find that incredibly difficult to emulate. And of course, right, if it was easy, everybody would do it, but they don't. And so you have just a very few organizations that, prove to be excellent over the long period of time. Again, you can look at number of athletes, number of coaches, and, I always look at people like that in awe, right? Of how can you sustain that,
right?
Even over decades, if you like, because some people can do that over decades, right? And I'll if I find something that I can read about them, I will, or I listen to. So again, I find that to be really rooted in reality, and I think the vast majority of people just like sports, right? Sports is entertainment. But I also think that sports is life.
Yeah.
And I think that people that have done sports at a certain level know that, sports is a reflection on life. And I think to be successful at sports, you have to apply a lot of lessons that you can use then in your career, in your real job, if you like, so to say. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't come up with a superhero, but
those are great. I think Wooden and Saban, who had that defined process. So they broke everything down to not the game, but that play, the preparation every single time. And I mean, but you're right. It's hard as a leader to keep that level of discipline and consistency, and especially when the weeds get high. So I agree with you. That's a great example. That's something I absolutely truly expect. So let me take some questions from the FloodGate family here. We've got here. You got John, who's Wooden was a great example there. So looks like he had another question there. Where is this question here? Just a little thank you there. So obviously make an impact there. So good stuff. Here's from Morgan. What do you think is the number one mistake that new leaders make?
Excellent question. I think that the organization has a lot of responsibility in allowing new leaders not to make mistakes, to avoid mistakes. For instance, by putting too much pressure too quickly on a new leader, it is possible that mistakes will be made. I think that another area that is very, very important, in fact, probably the most important one, is take time to understand deeply the culture and the people that you just joined. And this is something that I set for myself as a non-negotiable goal for myself when I joined BK Medical. I don't know about you, Joe, but changing jobs after a long period of time is not easy. And I spent 16 years in a previous company. So, you are molded, you are shaped and you're used to thinking a certain way, right? Because that's just the way it works. For 16 years,
Yeah.
that's all I knew. And so, I told myself that to simply go to a different place and sort of blindly or deafly apply what I learned in the other organization
Mm-hmm.
and to try to implement it without understanding how the new company really works would have been a mortal mistake. So, I think, again, every new leader needs to understand that the company does not need to adapt to him or her. He or she needs to adapt to the company. And again, it's a subtle distinction, if you like,
Yeah, it is.
in words, but I think it's really, really important because every organization has a very distinct culture. Now, there may be things to fix. There may be things that are not perfect, but it doesn't matter. The culture is there. And, if you go in with either arrogance or lack of willingness to really get to know people, I think it can be a problem. So that's I would say is the biggest one for me.
I loved your opening. Take the time to understand your
Yeah,
people and the culture, right? So many times you run in and you want to make the difference right out of the gate,
correct.
right? Versus stepping back and, as Stephen Covey says, seek to understand before being understood, right? So brilliant advice, really good. Here's the last question. We're over time. We'll take this last question here and then wrap up. But this is from a LinkedIn user. What metrics? You mentioned accountability, vision, culture, accountability. What are the metrics that you use or found successful for leadership teams and managers that are leading?
Yeah, this is a very interesting one, and certainly not an easy one to answer quickly, but I'll give you my best shot.
Okay.
There is an entire science, right, around measuring results, right? I mean, there are libraries full of books. So look, I think every organization needs to find the best compromise to be able to move the business forward. I absolutely believe that there have to be well-defined KPIs. I mean, there have to be measurable goals. As tedious as that may feel, I don't think it's negotiable, right? I mean, if you're running a business and you don't define precisely what needs to be accomplished, the confusion that will spread within the organization will become very difficult to manage. So to me, that's really a fundamental foundation of every organization. So you need to define that very clearly, and then you need to rally people around that. And again, then it becomes, okay, the quantitative goals are clear to everybody. And then the difficult part starts, which is, okay, how do we get there, right? So,
Right.
and this is where I think alignment is fundamentally important. And again, as I become, let's say, older and I spent more time in leadership positions, what I find extremely important, and I myself at times forget, is continue to preach what the right things are. I think that leaders, especially people at, let's say C-level or people at high level in organization, they probably need to repeat certain things over and over and over again. And as much as it can be sometimes an effort, or we are all, I would say, focused on fixing maybe fires or thinking about big things, but it is so important. Like if I have 15 minutes face to face with anybody in the organization that I don't see often or that doesn't report to me, I will never lose an opportunity to tell this person what needs to be done and how we need to do it, right? So what are we trying to do at the management level? You'll be surprised by how much people don't understand in the organization. And of course, the bigger the organization, the worse this gets.
Right.
Well, I really think the leaders have a fundamental responsibility, really a fundamental responsibility in continuously communicate what the goals and objectives for the company are. What are we trying to accomplish? How we want to do that? Why you are important to the overall result.
Right.
I think that there is a lot that can be done there. So again, it's one side is obviously setting clear goals. Again, that cannot be avoided. But then it's about, sort of reiterating those goals in a way that it's, qualitative with speech, with words,
Right.
with deeds, and with interactions. I think that's the best way to align everybody.
Right. Yeah, I have that objective, and then what's that measurement for it? But constantly reinforce it.
Yes.
I think I remember my advertising PR said, Professor, if you feel like you're sick of saying it, say it 5 more times. Right?
Yeah, that's spot on. I absolutely agree. Completely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, great, guys. I really appreciate the time. Paolo, thank you so much. It was a lot of wisdom. I hope FloodGate family, you've gained from this wisdom, and we'll have a feed going here. So if questions come up later, pop them in there. We'll try to answer, give you any feedback you need. And until next month, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Paolo. Have a great day.
Thanks, Joe, so much. Thank you so much.